Hello and welcome to our office hours presentation today. This is Paul Hoyt, welcoming you to Office Hours, which is a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we do every Monday at noon Pacific time. All of these recordings, slides, and exercises are archived in the members area on our website, and these recordings are available, at least for now, on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reasons we do this is because being a successful business owner can be a great experience, but it can be tough too. You need education, training, tools, and team in order to be successful. And we want you to get to know us because when you get to know us, you'll know that we really care about you. We want you to be successful in every area of your life, whatever that means to you. We want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity within yourself, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every single day as we try to do. Our passion is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of businesses in America. And our vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and enjoy greater harmony and balance in their lives. So please pass the word. If you find these office hours presentations beneficial, if you find this group coaching beneficial, please pass it along to your counterparts, the CEOs and entrepreneurs that you know in your network, especially those who might have a challenge or two and could benefit from a conversation with an experienced business consultant like myself, because we do love to help people. Our office hours agendas are usually an in-depth discussion of a business success principle. Then we offer closing remarks and special offers and invitations for next week's session, and then open Q&A and coaching. But today it's all Q&A and coaching. So start thinking about your questions and your discussion topics, and also join us in our Awakened CEO communities on both LinkedIn and Facebook, where we publish a business success principle of the day for discussion usually 4 days a week. And I do an energy of the day posting on Facebook every day of the week. I think we're up to day number 625 in a row for my energy of the day postings. During the call, I invite you to make comments, ask questions, share insights and your takeaways on the Awaken CEO community on Facebook. And our goal is 20 comments and likes in the Facebook group. This Wednesday, we're going to have another webinar entitled The Awaken CEO Conversation. It is an interactive webinar with our special guest, Debbie Lynn Grace. She is a former business consultant and marketing strategist who has since switched her career and made a transition into being more of a personal empowerment and spiritual coach. And I know you'll want to hear what she has to say about the relationship between business growth and personal growth. That's this Wednesday, August the 12th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Watch your emails for sign-up information. If you haven't done so already, if you just found this webinar via other means, be sure to go to paulhoyt.com and sign up for our list so you can get invitations to webinars like this and a lot of other free things that we provide and valuable things that we provide to our membership. Today's topic is open and Q&A and group coaching. As always, we try to relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas, and this is about anything. This is about marketing, product development, operations, financial management, sales, customer service, delivery of services, or leadership. Any aspect of the business that you have a question on, please, I invite you to ask that question either live or type it into the chat log, or send me an email in between conferences. We also, in our Awaken CEO system, focused on performance at 3 different levels: at the level of your mindset, with your methods, and your momentum. So we know that it's real important for you to get your attitude and your perspective right, have your plans, processes, and procedures in place, in other words, the methods of business, and then establish momentum and maintain momentum in your business. And as with the key performance areas, you are welcome to ask questions in any one of these aspects of performance as well. In previous office hours, as just a reminder for the last 3, in office hours 83, we talked about sales scripting. In office hours 84, we talked about the illusions of entrepreneurship. And in office hours 85, we talked about the programs of the SBA. Just a little more information on each one of these might stimulate a question or a conversation. In 83, we talked about scripts. What were sales scripts and how do you get started with sales scripts? We talked about the sales circle, which you can see in the diagram on your screen unless you're just listening to audio. We talked about the different phases of a script, offered some tips for success, talked about what was next for you and the bottom line. In Office Hours 84, we talked about a book which has been one of the most eye-opening books that I've read in a long time, called The Illusions of Entrepreneurship. We talked about the author, Professor Scott Shane, who is not only a professor in college, but also a very experienced angel investor. He identified some 57 myths of startups, and we talked about a few of them in the context of our Office Hours presentation. We talked about public policy, what we both consider to be the challenge for small businesses. He offered some suggestions, and then I offered some of my own suggestions about what we can do to increase the success rate of small businesses, and we summed it all up as we usually do with the bottom line. And then in Office Hours 85, the programs of the SBA, which we did 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Small Business Administration and their definition of what a small business was, and then got into all of the programs that the Small Business Administration offers for small businesses. Small businesses, generally speaking, are businesses with revenues less than $20 million. In some cases, it's companies with less than $5 million in revenue. They have loan programs. They offer programs for disadvantaged businesses. They offer small business development centers, women's business centers, and the SCORE, and also a whole bunch of more stuff. And again, we sum that up with the bottom line. So those were the last 3 programs that we did: 83 on sales scripting, 84 on the illusions of entrepreneurship, and 85 on the programs of the SBA. So I want to open it up for questions and answers, and any discussion topic that you would like for us to address. So first of all, I think we take a look at the ones that are online here. And so anybody who's online live in attendance can hit the question box in the GoToWebinar control box and ask us a question, and we'd love to answer it just as quickly as we could live and get into a discussion with you as well. So with that, I'm going to, as I always do, invite Stephanie to suggest. Stephanie, do you have any questions for us today?
I do. We have a whole bunch of really good ones today. Are you ready?
I am.
Here's first one, and I love this one, so I'm asking this one first.
Okay.
Momentum is a big theme with your brand. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by the momentum?
Brand is, well, let's first talk about the term momentum. It's actually a physics term. By definition, if you look up momentum, momentum is velocity times mass. It is a unit of force. And what this means is that the larger the thing is, let's just say your business, the larger your business is and the more rapidly it is moving, the more momentum you have established. A lot of time in business, we talk about momentum in terms of revenues. We can talk about momentum in terms of profits. We can talk about momentum in terms of expansion of the business itself. We can talk about momentum in the speed with which you introduce new products and services, with which you open up new locations, open up new markets, etc. So I have a little bit of physics training in my background in college, a long time ago. But I remember the concept of momentum. You see the concept of momentum a lot in football. So if you have a 400-pound lineman run into a 180-pound cornerback, if they're going the same speed, the lineman's going to have considerable more momentum than the cornerback. However, if the lineman's just standing there, even though they have much greater mass, and the 180-pound cornerback hits them at full speed, the cornerback's going to have considerable more momentum, and it's the lineman that's going to get knocked over. So you can get lessons in physics by watching football, I guess, when it comes to momentum. In business, a lot of people say that we want you to get into action, but we want to take it one step further than that. We want you to have significant momentum, and significant momentum is accomplished by increasing the velocity and the pace with which you get revenues, get profits, open up new locations, launch new products and services, and the size of your business itself. So ideally, you would be a company with millions of dollars in revenue or more, which gives you considerable mass, and you would be continually expanding and increasing the momentum in your business, increasing the velocity and the power with which you are getting revenues and profits and building a stronger business. I hope that made sense. Stephanie, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, for me, the one thing that really stands out about momentum, as you said, I got so excited about it I can't talk. The one thing that stands out for me is that when our clients and when you and I and Marcel, when we work with our clients, when we work with individuals on these office hours,
Mhm.
the amount of when people come together, as you know, the knowledge, the synergy, the everything that's there expands exponentially. And so that's one of the reasons why I just love working with you, working with our clients, is that being able to leverage that synergy, take advantage of that, really gets the momentum from A to D in a much faster way. And if you don't, for some individuals who are stuck or challenged or their momentum is not going so great, kind of hitching your wagon to somebody whose momentum is jamming pulls you along with it. And before you know it, you're able to go off on your own, and that momentum just keeps accelerating.
Thank you. I
Does that make
appreciate that.
sense?
Well, it did, except for, of course, I'm a physics guy, so the momentum and acceleration are different terms. You can't you can increase momentum, but you can't accelerate momentum. You accelerate velocity, and that turn gives you greater momentum. But I'm kind of a, as you know, because you've been working with me for a while, I'm a language nut. You know, I'm pretty particular on the definitions that I use for terms. So anyway, so I hope that that was helpful to the person who sent the question in. And if you're online, you're certainly welcome to ask a follow-up question. But in the meantime, Stephanie, do we have other questions?
Yes. Here's one. We have several different growth opportunities. How do we decide which ones to pursue first?
I'm glad you asked that question. I've answered that question quite a few times at CEO Space this last week in the one-on-one conversations that I have with dozens of entrepreneurs, many of whom are just getting started in their business. So it really depends on where you are in your business and what's most important to you. For most companies, one of the most important criteria is long-term growth. We want to do things that are consistent with and propel us forward in terms of our long-term direction, our long-term growth opportunities. If you've got a lot of time and resources available to you, in other words, if you've got cash in the bank to take care of your personal financial needs, that may be the primary consideration for the first, 3, 6, 8 months of your business, is that long-term growth. Only doing things that are consistent with your brand, that help you establish the brand and help you establish a great foundation for long-term growth. Things like having a quality brand, things like getting the education and training that you need in order to really set a good foundation for your business. For most companies, though, short-term revenues are real important too. Cash flow is very important. And so you have to balance out your long-term opportunities with your short-term opportunities. One of the prospects, clients that I was talking to at this last week had like 5 or 6 different opportunities. And we chose, in the context of our conversation, to focus on the ones that would get them into cash flow the quickest, get them into revenue the quickest, get them to a place of greater financial stability the quickest, so that they would have less dependence on other people. They know that they want to raise capital for their business, a significant amount of capital for the business, but raising capital is infinitely easier when you don't need to raise capital to meet your mortgage payment or to meet your car payment or even put food on the table. So if your personal financial needs are taken care of, then focus on long-term growth and stability. If they are not particularly, or if you're running out of headroom when it comes to your available cash, then we want to focus on short-term opportunities and do everything that we can to engage with the marketplace as quickly as possible and get that cash flow in the door. So it really depends on where you are. Where is the low-hanging fruit is a great question to ask for most people. What's most consistent with your long-term goals and vision is a great question. And most people do multiple things simultaneously. They might have 2 or 3 projects that they're working on, 3 or 4 initiatives even that they're working on. One that's designed to pay off very quickly, one that's going to pay off midterm, and one that's going to pay off in the long term. And that's a pretty good balance to have in your business. So that's the way you decide. And by the way, with some of our coaching practices that we have. I help people create a decision matrix where we define what your most important decision criteria are, what all your options are, and rate them across those different criteria. I am an analyst, and a programmer and a project manager by training and by heart. So when you come to me and ask for the solution to a problem, the odds are pretty darn good that it's going to involve some analysis, and it might involve a spreadsheet, which, by the way, is an ideal thing for a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Most CEOs and entrepreneurs are visionaries. They may or may not be very talented when it comes to analysis or even implementation as well, and that's why we provide, I'd say, great and valuable service to our clients. Hopefully that was the answer. That was a good answer to the question out there. Next question, Stephanie.
Okay. I'm juggling a whole lot of opportunities, and now another one has been presented to me. What approach do you recommend for deciding what to do to keep going there?
That's an interesting question. Most entrepreneurs, most small businesses, especially when they're first getting started, are juggling a whole bunch of opportunities. Certainly, if you're in sales, it's very common for you to be having a long pipeline of prospects, and you need to push them forward, move them forward throughout the sales process, through your pipeline, at the same time. So salespeople are typically used to managing multiple opportunities in the context of sales. And other companies will manage multiple opportunities when it comes to product development or opening up new locations or other things that help grow and expand the company. I think every business needs to be working on more than one thing kind of at the same time. Every once in a while I hear somebody say that people really can't multitask. And I just chuckle at that because I think we all multitask all the time. We have things that we do that are controlled by our subconscious minds and things that we do that are controlled by our conscious minds. And when it comes to our conscious minds and our internal dialogue, many of us can switch subjects very quickly. We can be thinking about option A and then think about option B, or customer A and then customer B. And though generally speaking, our conscious mind can only be thinking at one thing at the same time, some people can actually be having multiple trains of thought, and you can switch back and forth so quickly that it looks like you're working on two or three things at the same time. But everybody has their limit. The reason I said that is because we all have our limit. Every system has its limit as to how many things it can really be focusing on at the same time. Having a pipeline of 20 prospects is not necessarily better than having a pipeline of 10 prospects, because if you're trying to give time and attention to all 20 of them, you may not be giving appropriate time and attention to the 10 that's going to result in the most likely achievement of sales and give you the highest sales revenue. Likewise, a company can't work on a dozen projects at the same time. It's just, I don't think it's possible for you to give the appropriate time and attention to all of those different things. What I recommend is the 60-30-10 rule to start. 60-30-10 says that for the next chosen amount of time, for today, for the next hour, for the next week, for the next month, we're going to put 60% of our time and effort on priority 1, 30% of our time and effort on priority 2, 10% of our time and effort on priority 3, and everything else goes into the parking lot. It's set aside until we have finished with one or more of those projects and we're ready to take something else off the pile, our highest priority off the pile, and put it into motion. For most people, that works exceptionally well, that they can focus on priority 1, and when they come up for air, when they need a little break, when they're waiting on somebody to respond, they can go to priority 2, then shift back to priority 1, and when priority 1 and priority 2 are both waiting on something, or they need a break from those two, they can switch to priority 3, and so on. I find that works exceptionally well for most people. Every once in a while, by the way, I talk to people that say, I can't do that. That's not the way that I do things. I like to go put myself in a cave or go into my room, shut the door, focus on just one thing for the next 4 or 5 days and not come up for air at all. I don't answer emails. I don't answer phone calls. I only come out of my room to go to sleep and take care of, personal needs in some way. But I just focus. That's the way they get creative and get the job done. So if that's you, then recognize that your pattern of productivity, needs to have that sort of commitment, and just do it. It doesn't work real well when you're the leader of a company, by the way, because typically companies have so many things going on that you need to have some time during the day to answer emails and return phone calls and communicate with the people who are on your team, etc. That sort of, heavily focused approach for days, only works if you're a technical team member, if that's the only responsibility that you have. For most people, however, back to what I said earlier, I recommend the 60-30-10. Now, if a new opportunity comes along, then you have to decide, with your opportunity management discipline, does this opportunity merit me setting aside the three things that I'm currently working on, or should it be at the top of the pile when I complete one of the three things that I'm currently working on? Or is this like a stop the presses thing and we don't work on anything else but this opportunity for the next, hours or few hours or few days? You get to decide. You have to decide whenever you are the CEO of the business. You're the person who gets to make that decision as to whether or not you let this new thing that you became aware of somehow adjust the priorities of everything else that you previously had committed to doing. So it's always an interesting conversation. It's a conversation I have with people all the time, and the answer depends on their specific circumstance. Most of the time, when a new opportunity comes around, I recommend that they put it in the parking lot for a few days at least and continue their focus on their current projects, on their current 60-30-10. Sometimes, however, I have recommended that this is a stop the presses kind of activity or opportunity, and it is time to stop everything, call the meetings, call the staff meetings, get everybody on the phone and address the opportunity that's been given to them. So it really is an individual kind of thing. And again, my usual advice is, if something comes in and it doesn't require an absolute immediate response, is that you at least put it on the side until tomorrow morning's staff meeting, or until you're able to call a meeting in a couple of days and really judge it for its merits relative to your current focus and attention. Hopefully that was helpful. Stephanie, I'm ready for the next question.
Okay. I want to open a paleo restaurant. How do I get started? So I had to look that one up.
You had to look, did you look up paleo?
I did.
I'm assuming they're talking about the paleo diet, but a paleo diet essentially means only raw fruits and vegetables. And typically on a paleo diet, it means that nothing is cooked and it's no meat. So it's a paleo vegan diet is most of what I'm hearing and seeing, because we don't eat raw meat very much outside the context of sushi. So a paleo diet is like the caveman diet. What did the caveman eat before they discovered fire? And it's become very popular because in many circles it's seen as being a key to living longer and living a very healthy life. That we used to eat that way, and our bodies are genetically programmed to be healthier on a paleo diet than they are certainly on the processed food diets of today. And the genetically modified organisms and all the additives and stuff like that. I think we're seeing, that humanity has done a really bad job for ourselves in not investing in more healthy food. And I think as it turns out, that if you were to eat healthier food, you would need to eat less of that healthy food. You could be a thinner person and a stronger person, and it wouldn't cost you any more to do so. It would just take a little extra time and attention. So anyway, that's what a paleo diet is, and I'm a fan of paleo diets. At least I think, at least 1 or 2 meals a day that I have is a paleo meal. But to open up a restaurant, then the question is, what do I do when I open up a restaurant? I always ask people to start off with, do you have any restaurant management experience? I've had people come up to me and say, I want to start a restaurant, And I asked them if they've had any restaurant experience, and they say, no, I've been to a lot of restaurants, but I've never worked in a restaurant, and I've never managed in a restaurant. I've never owned a restaurant before. And my advice is usually go get that experience. Go get that experience for yourself. And if you're too busy or you don't have the time or you don't have the interest in getting that experience, you have to hire that experience on your team. As it turns out, according to the U.S. Restaurant Association research that I did a few years ago, it seems like restaurants have about a 50-50 chance of survival, almost regardless of how much you invest in that restaurant. So whether you put in $500,000 or $2 or $3 million, you have about a 50% chance of success in survival. So restaurants depend upon 4 different things. They depend upon decorations, menu, service, and location. Those 4 things. I'm glad I remembered all 4 of them. So location, of course, you want a high foot traffic to your restaurant. The service, you want to have excellent service, whether that service be drive-through service or a fine dining experience or something in the middle of that. You want to make sure that you have a great menu, have unique foods and foods that taste good and really have people saying that they love their meal. And you need, what was the 4th one? Menu or decorations. You have to have something that's pleasant and comfortable. So those are the 4 things that you need. And I practically told you everything I know about restaurants. I've done some restaurant financial models, so I understand a little bit about the cost profile of restaurants and how much they spend on food versus overhead versus staff, and the other and versus marketing, etc. But generally, if you're going to start any business, I guess the number one piece of advice that I would give you is get experience on your team. Get people on your team that have been there and done it before, because they are going to save you tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, when it comes to starting and growing your business by helping you avoid mistakes and make great decisions from the very beginning. So I love the idea of a paleo restaurant, whether it be, a faster food, and counter service, or whether it be fine dining experience or a drive-through experience, because I think that will make us all be healthier people. And if you don't have the type of experience that you need, then be sure to go out and get it on your team for the very beginning. A founder or a partner, which is a pretty darn good idea. And if you don't want to share the ownership in your business in some way, then you have to be prepared to capitalize the business more and hire the experience that you need. Hope that was helpful for you. I'm going to take just a minute and share a little bit more about the Hoyt Management Group and who we are and what we do. Here at the Hoyt Management Group, we are distinctive. We're not like other consulting firms. We focus on the whole person, as we said, with mindset, methods, and momentum. And we really do just want you to get the support that you want, that you can need, that you can use, and that you can afford in your business. We don't try to sell you anything that's just not perfect for you to take those next steps in your business. So our support services are primarily planning and execution services with a heavy emphasis on execution. And here's why. Is because it is all about the execution. Having a great vision is a really great idea. Understanding where you are with your status is really important. Then you create the plan, and then you gather the resources. But then 97% of your time, 95 to 97% of your time is focused on the execution. And that's one of the things that we take pride in, is actually helping you implement the plans that we help you create. I want to invite you again to Awaken CEO Conversation this Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. We're having a special guest, Debbie Lynn Grace, on. We'll talk to her about her journey of business growth and personal growth and spiritual growth. And we invite you to tune into that conversation to be inspired and to be informed in what we think is one of the most important things about the Awaken CEO system, and that is our focus on business growth, professional growth, and personal growth at the same time. Watch your emails for sign-up information, or you're welcome just to give us a call, and we'll make sure that you know about that. Our next office hours will be next Monday, August the 17th. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about yet. If you would like to suggest some topics that you would like for us to talk about, you can go to paulsurvey.com or simply send us an email and let us know. And with that, I'm going to open it up for the rest of the call for additional questions and discussion points, and hopefully some good answers as well. Stephanie, do you have another call for, or another question for us?
Yep, I do. Regarding product development, how frequently should we re-examine our offers, price points, branding of the products, and other results in the marketplace? Great one.
That is a good one. And I think examining your product development roadmap is something that's a part of the strategy for the business. So generally, we once a year, we reset our strategy. We go off with the management of the business and take a look at the year that is to come and determine what products and services we're going to offer, any changes to our pricing or our packaging, any changes to the way that we bring our products to market, and we set our annual goals. And then every quarter, we update those. Every quarter, we have a tune-up meeting for a half a day or a day, and we revisit what the decisions that we made when we did our last annual planning meeting and see whether or not we are making the progress that we expected to make, and see whether or not we need to adjust our course and change our direction a little bit. So I think it's in those quarterly tune-up meetings and those quarterly check-in meetings that you would ask the big question about, do we need to change our product development roadmap and our product plans, or do we want to proceed with the plan that we set several months ago? Now, that being said, just like the conversation we had earlier about having a new opportunity and whether or not to embrace that and set something else on the side, if you have a breakthrough in your R&D department, or just a breakup in some way, if something's not working, then you have to make adjustments to your overall product development plan outside the context of your regular schedule. So I think that's my primary advice. At least once a quarter, get in and take a look at your product development roadmap, the products that you have in the market. Ask yourself what's working and what's not working. And if something else comes up, a new opportunity, or somebody raises their hand and says, what was working last month just isn't working anymore, and I'm starting to see a trend, or people are no longer opening our emails, people are no longer clicking through on our emails, people are no longer buying our stuff, then you may need to update your plans more quickly than just once every quarter. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah.
Next question.
Well, I would just like to add, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. What I was going to say was pay attention to what your customers are saying, and listen to your team members, to your sales team, to your marketing individuals. What are they saying about your product funnel, and as you said, what's working and what's not working? I think many times we fail to pay attention to our target market, the same ones that we're so intent on serving.
Great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay, where is it? I like this one. How do you know if you're too young or too old to start a business?
Well, a few years ago, it was my pleasure to work with a gentleman who was 87 years old, and I think his wife was 84 years old, and they were starting a new business. In their minds, they were not too old to start a business at all, that they still had a lot of energy. They were able to get up and go into, and work in the business many, many hours a day. And I really admired them for that. They did have one challenge, by the way, and the challenge was that they wanted to raise capital for their business, and they, of course, had a lot of key man risk. I did an office hours presentation 6 or 8 weeks ago on the risks of business, and we identified 6 primary risks. The number one at the top of it is key man risk, which is the risk that the founders of the business will somehow go away or not be available to really put their time and energy into the business. And when you're 87 years old and 85 years old, stuff happens. You have to take care of yourself, and you might not be available to work the 12 hours a day or 15 hours a day that some of the younger entrepreneurs can work. So you have to work smarter instead of harder when you're up in your years and you want to start a new business, because you have to take care of yourself. And I think, generally speaking, it would be harder to raise capital when you're in your 80s than it would be when you're in your 40s. Just because of investors' perceived risk in investing in you as the founder of the business. You'd have to make sure you get key man insurance and find other ways to mitigate the key man risk for the investors. And this last week, I picked up my youngest client. Her name is Neva Rekla. She is 5 years old, and she is an absolute dynamo. She's 5 years going on 40, and just the most amazing little young lady that I've ever been around. And I was pleased to be invited by her to be a member of her advisory board. And we held her first advisory board meeting, a couple of days ago. And we talked about, what is it that you want to do, and how would you like to start your business, and what would you like your business to be? And she gave some really great, intelligent answers. She's a dynamo. She knows what her business is going to be. And by the way, this is kind of her second business. For the last year, she's been painting pictures and selling them and donating them to veterans. So she's got a heart of gold as well. So that's the range of the people that I have worked with. My oldest client was starting a business when they were 87 years old. And my youngest client that I just picked up this last week is starting a business, and she's 5 years old. And she'll be 6 in September, so she's barely 5, but 6 years old is it's just amazing. I'm really going to enjoy this journey with her to help her define her business model and define what products she's going to do and help her bring it to market. And who knows, she could be I know that she will be a superstar because she's already a super young lady. So if you're 30 years old or 40 years old or 50 years old, I guess the good question is, what's your excuse? So I guess you're never too old or never too young to start a business. Hopefully that was helpful. Stephanie, next question.
That's beautiful. I've talked to Tanya about her daughter. She's amazing.
Yep.
Very amazing. Here's one. My landing page is not getting the results I want. What should I do?
That's a good one. And Stephanie, I'm going to let you answer that one, because on our team, Stephanie has been the person who knows the most about landing pages and response. I guess my most intelligent response to that would be change something, try something else. But I'll let Stephanie give a little bit more intelligent response to that one. Go ahead.
Well, it's just interesting in that it's something that we've been relooking at and redoing it with our own materials as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've learned is that landing pages and what they, and I say they in quotation marks here, but what other experts and they say continues to change and be updated and revamped, and new experts have new advice every single month, if not every week or even more often than that. So I would say if your landing page is not getting the results that you want, absolutely it's time to make a change. And there's all kinds of different things to look at when you're looking at your landing page. I just saw tons of research this week on colors and what the different colors mean, and what the different colors mean in different cultures and in different industries. It's interesting, one company was preparing a presentation, and they had up on the screen a map of the United States, and they had picked red, blue, green, yellow across the board for the different quarters. Now, I should say that the audience was individuals like Paul who are very number-minded, a lot of accountants, a lot of financial individuals in that industry in the audience. And when they looked at the screen and saw that the entire western part of the United States was all in red, they all almost had a hissy fit and heart attacks all across the room and big gasps, and everybody wondering what was wrong with the western part of the United States. And it took the individual up on the podium over 10 minutes to get everyone calmed down and let them know that red does not mean that we're losing money. It's just a color that I chose to designate that area. 10 minutes, it said, 10 minutes to calm people down. So needless to say, by that time he had lost them, right? So it's just so many different factors and things go into landing pages. It used to be where I heard that you had, 10 to 12 seconds to get somebody's attention on a click-through on a landing page. Now that number is down to between 6 and 8 seconds. So you don't have very much time to grab your audience's attention.
Yep.
One of the things that Paul and I are doing right now is redoing a lot of our pages with infographics, because more individuals are more visual now than at any time before, and getting more so. Marcel's been helping us really integrate a lot of the new marketing things that you can do with the graphics on your landing pages and other parts of your website. So I could probably go on, we could probably do a whole presentation on this, but if there's something that's not working on your landing page, the first thing I would do is say, call me, call Paul, let us talk to you and help take a look. The other thing is really start dissecting the page and take a look at what doesn't make sense. How can you grab your audience attention in under that 8 seconds above the fold? Because that's really what they say, and I say they again in quotation marks, for the time being anyway, to really focus on initially. And it is one of those things that you're going to have to continue to look at over and over, and keep it on your radar screen.
Yep. And I'll add to that, if I may here. First of all, look at what the really competent internet marketing people, the very, very successful marketing people are doing on their pages and their landing pages, because it does, one of the aspects about marketing that makes marketing so challenging is that you have to continually change the messages that you are delivering and continually change the way in which you are delivering those messages. So look at the other ones that you know are successful, not ones that you think are successful, the ones that you know that you are successful, and copy what they're doing a little bit. The other thing I would suggest is split tests, is just trying different things. And one of the things we really like to do, if you have a wide volume or a lot of internet traffic coming your way, you can do split tests. You can see what font works well, what colors work well, what pictures work well, and you can really tell by the responses that you're getting. So you can hone into the right visual presentation and the right messaging for your particular marketplace. I think we got, did we have any I thought we had a write-in question there, Stephanie. Do we have one from one of the guy who's on the call itself?
Yes, we do, and you can unmute him. Here's his questions. I sent a lot of emails to online investors, but received no response. I applied for an SBA loan to develop my idea and product, but they did not accept my credit score, and I'm kind of disappointed, and in raising the capital, I'm not sure what to do. I'm a good engineer, but not so good in the paperwork or in the business part.
That's a great question, and because of the nature of the question, I'm just going to let that be an anonymous question for a little bit. So you mentioned a couple of things about SBA loans, which is a great, you have to apply through a bank, and it does depend upon your personal credit score and your ability to validate, or ability to supply collateral and give the bank confidence and the SBA confidence that you'll be able to repay that loan. Raising capital, though, can be a different thing. I've seen people raise capital even when their credit scores are very, very small. So my invitation to you, because I know that you're an inventor, is to make sure that you watch the office hours that we had on the Lean Startup Methodology, which I think is number 17, and to watch the one on 6 stages of raising capital, which is 18. One of the stages of raising capital, the very first stage, is the founder stage. If you're having the challenge in getting the resources that you need, financial resources or other people working with you, you may want to reach out and look for founders. Here in Silicon Valley, where I live, they have meetup groups that are, founders seeking founders. So people who want to be on a startup team, or they're looking for members of their startup team, can go to that, and they can find other people that want to jump into business. So it could be that having additional people on your team will really help you get the confidence of the people that you know and give you greater success in raising capital. There's another really good one, and I don't know which office hours presentation it was, on Nail It, Then Scale It, which is a book written by a professional investor. And he talks about the real importance to have 3 people on your team. In fact, he says he will never, ever, ever invest in a business unless they have these 3 roles covered. And that is the hacker, the huckster, and the hopeful. The hacker is the engineer. That's what you are, but you don't have a huckster or a salesperson, and you may not have the hopeful or the visionary on your team, because people know that it takes those 3 skill sets and mindsets to be successful in business. We occasionally see that with 2 people, but almost never see somebody who is an excellent hacker and an excellent salesperson and an excellent visionary or leader at the business, all 3 at the same time. It's very, very, very rare, and it's not likely to be you or me who has embodied all 3 of those strengths, in our personality and in our experience set. So I think the number one thing that I would suggest is think about raising capital from family and friends and from other founders, and go find somebody else to be on your team, somebody else that knows what kind of a great engineer you are and is willing to come in and step in the role of a salesperson or otherwise step into an executive role, so you're not doing it by yourself, and so you can gain the confidence of investors more readily, because there's less risk in a business when there's 2 or 3 or 4 people on the ground floor than there is when there's just one of you on the ground floor. So let me recap that just a little bit and add one more thing in there. I would certainly recommend that you see the office hours on the Lean Startup methodology, see the office hours on the 6 stages of raising capital, see the office hours on Nail It, Then Scale It, and another one came to my mind too, and that's the one on pitching to investors. So if you go through and review those 4 things, you'll be in much better shape, and then go out and do whatever you can to find somebody else to join you at the company, so that you're not just trying to do it all by yourself. And thank you very much for that question. I really do appreciate it when our guests who are live on the call ask a question that we can answer here. And you're certainly welcome to type into the chat log a follow-up question if you like. Stephanie, do we have other questions?
Yep. You're going to like this one. I'm struggling in business and not making the money I need to. What do I do?
I heard that a few times this past week, and my advice is pretty much always the same. Go sell something. Business is all about selling and delivery, sales and delivery, sales and delivery. Most people go into business because they want to deliver. They want to do what they love to do, and they want to get in control of their own life, and they want to be their own boss. They want to have the chance to be creative, and that's really about delivering, delivering, delivering. But sales is at least half of business. You have to be competent in sales and even excellent in sales in order to be a successful business person. That's just the bottom line. So what I usually coach people is focus on sales education and sales training and sales scripting and sales support to the point that you are determined to be just as professional, just as competent, just as excellent in sales as you are in delivering. If you're a great accountant, then be a great salesperson and a great accountant. If you're a great roofer, then be a great salesperson, a person who sells roofing contracts in addition to being a great roofer. Because somebody on your team really has to be as excellent in sales and marketing as you are in delivering the products and services that your business delivers. So that's the number one message. It's real consistent, by the way, with almost all the other business consultants that you'll talk to out there. Michael Gerber in his book, The E-Myth, talks about that. He talks about the fatal assumption being that because I'm a good roofer, then I'll be good at running a roofing business. Because I'm a good accountant, I'll be good at running an accounting business. Because I'm a good engineer, I'll be good at inventing something and bringing it to the market. And the truth is, it's not true at all. That is part of what is needed in order to be successful in business. But you, as the CEO and the entrepreneur, have a responsibility to go learn the other things that you need to learn, to get the education, to get the training, get the mentoring, and get the support that you need to be competent in all areas of your business. And the one that's most usually missing from CEOs and entrepreneurs is sales and marketing. So get the sales support, the sales training, the sales people on your team to help you be more successful, and you'll be miles and miles ahead. And I've got 12:51. So Stephanie, I think we've got time for one or maybe two more questions if they're short. So please, and if you're on the call live, be sure to type your question into the chat box now so we can get to it before the end of the call. Next question, Stephanie.
Do you have any advice for managing all of a company's documents? For example, the 7 key performance areas and others.
To manage the companies, I do, and there's a couple of things that I would certainly recommend. Number one that I would recommend is a central server. You know, most everything is digital these days. I assume that we're talking digital because if you're talking about physical documents, which by the way you have to manage as well, because you need to have signed contracts or signed copies of all of your, all of your physical contracts. Having digital, isn't good enough when it comes to a court of law. You need to have the signed originals safely put away somewhere. So you have to designate a physical repository for the key things in your business. That might be, at an attorney's office. It might be in a fireproof safe or fireproof filing cabinet somewhere in your office, or if you're working in a home environment, somewhere around so that you can make sure that you have the physical documents secured. But generally these days we do most of our work digitally. So you set up a cloud server somewhere that everybody has access to and that allows you to maintain your company's digital records on a shared repository. Before we used to be virtual companies, people would set up their own servers in their own local area network inside their primary office building, and it was just known that every device that was at there had access to that local server, and that's where all the company's digital documents were stored. In a virtual environment, that centralized server has a tendency to be in the cloud somewhere, either at Dropbox or Amazon, or there was another one that I worked with that I'm dropping the name of right now. But there are a variety of services that provide, a cloud-based virtual digital server that allows you to put all of your documents in. If that document, by the way, is also something that needs to be updated collaboratively, there are services like Google Docs and some other collaborative services that allows us to not only share the files, but to actually work on them simultaneously as well. So we'd be happy to talk to you about a digital repository and a digital storage strategy anytime that you like. Certainly that's one of the capacities that we can help businesses in when it comes to designing their operational infrastructure. And we're happy to do that as part of our normal consulting engagements out there. So one other thing I would certainly recommend is you to engage with some service that automatically backs up your digital repository and your repository on your system. I'm going to give a shameless, unsolicited plug to my favorite one. I use Carbonite. And Carbonite cost me I think it's 50 or 60 bucks a year, and it has saved my keister more than once when I inadvertently deleted a file, or in one case when I just simply lost my entire computer. I picked up a virus at an airport, and before I knew it, my files were getting corrupted one after the other, and I traced it back to that event and was able to recover all of my files as of a particular point in time, so that I didn't lose anything. So I used to be a data processing professional. I used to manage data centers. I was a CIO of a manufacturing company with $60 million in revenue. So I understand the power of data and the power of data backups and the importance it is for you as the CEO and entrepreneur at your business to make sure that you are backing up everything appropriately so that you don't have a tragic loss, a devastating loss, if a disk drive happens to fail on somebody's machine somewhere. So storing things in the cloud so that you know that they're being backed up regularly, and then using something like Carbonite to store and back up all of the other individual files on everybody's laptop or desktop is a pretty darn good idea. I've got 12:56. I don't know if we have a short question left or whether that's the end of the question. Stephanie, you got anything left for us?
Yes. I invented a new kind of hat. I think it's pretty cool, but other people are telling me to do my market research. Why is that a good idea, and how should I do it?
Do your market research. It's a good idea because just because you like the hat doesn't mean that enough people in the marketplace are going to like your hat that will allow you to create a viable business around it. That's the real challenge of inventors. Any inventor out there, here's the painful truth. The painful truth is the odds of your one invention being commercially successful is somewhere between 1 in 50 and 1 in 100. So only 1 or 2% of inventions are ever commercially viable. And the biggest reason they're not commercially viable is because the marketplace doesn't want them in sufficient quantity. You'll find people who love them and think it's the coolest thing on this earth. You may think it's the coolest thing, but the bottom line is that this is a world of statistics and it's a world of severe competition. So you have to make sure that your idea is wanted by enough people in order to turn it into a viable business and a viable business opportunity for you. The reason we do that market research up front is to avoid making a $100,000 or a $250,000 or $1 million mistake. Early on in my career, I worked with a gentleman, or started to work with a gentleman, who has invested his entire life savings in about $100,000 or so at the time in creating a product overseas in China, and he bought like 10,000 of them, and they were sitting in a storage unit because no matter how hard he tried, people didn't want to buy it enough to make it viable on a shelf somewhere. He tried at 3 or 4 different retail stores to put his product on the shelf and to get people to buy it, and every time it came up just short of their revenue per square feet of shelf space goals that they had. So that market research, and especially things like the lean startup methodology, allow us to change the product before we bring it to market in a big way, or to abandon the product if nobody really is going to buy it and it doesn't look like the probability of success is very good at all. So actually, market research is the #1 business success principle in the area of marketing. If you were to take, and I strongly recommend that you do, take my Awaken CEO Foundations program, you'll see that the #1 success principle in marketing is to do your market research. So do your market research, and I hope that it all turns out well. I hope that you see that thousands or millions of people are clamoring for your product, but 49 out of 50 times that's not the way it turns out. 49 out of 50 times it turns out that people don't want your product in sufficient quantity at a sufficient price point in order for you to create a viable business around that. So my message to all the inventors is not just do your market research, but also have multiple inventions. And that's really not a problem for most inventors, because they are creative people. And if one idea doesn't work, then they move on to the next idea, and then the next idea, and the next idea. And the bottom line is, if you have like 15 or 20 ideas, the odds start getting pretty darn good that one of them is going to be commercially viable and successful, and that you're going to be able to make a business out of it and move on to bringing additional products and services to market. We're going to call that the last question for the day. I really appreciate those of you who attended live, and appreciate those of you who are listening to the recording of this live group coaching session. Join me this Wednesday for an Awakened CEO conversation with our special guest, Debbie Lynn Grace. And join me next Monday for our next office hours presentation, where we'll have another opportunity to talk about a subject of business that's important to you, that's valuable to you, and again, ask any questions that you would like to ask, or enter into any discussion that you would like. And until we meet again, either this next Wednesday or next Monday, this is Paul Hoyt thanking you for attending and wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.